Hello everyone and welcome to this video where I'm going to be showing you some of the things that I've been working on, some things to expect in the future, some of my dilemmas, some things that, took longer than anticipated, all that good stuff. It's just kind of a summary video. It is the holiday season, of course. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, that's upcoming. And with that, I did have a good amount of free time, between work and whatnot. But it wasn't all fun and games, and I'll explain that in a bit. But first of all, I want to show you this new vessel, the RV Gander, waterfowls, geese, that type of fun thing. It is an not amphibious, but it is a landing craft, so that front ramp can accept vehicles. And the nice thing about this vessel is not only is it based on the OSAR Pelican platform, but it is an advanced version of that. And I'll explain all that in a second as well. So first and foremost, it is based on the OSAR Pelican platform, as I mentioned, but I went ahead and added the so-called universal connectors. Again, it's universal as in my universe or F454SS universe. So you have the ISO containers here, you have the H4, and you have the R10. So this lets you put helicopters, subs, and cars on the deck, and we'll get to the cars thing in a bit. In addition to that, I've been working on these connectors. Now you'll see some of them on the Aquanaut, but I actually built some other ones that are going to start making an appearance, and all of them have a key to be released, so that's good. And here I labeled their duties or what they're good for. Here you see just the attachments. Now from the left, here we have the camera and the magall attachment. This is probably the most useful. It features a light, a camera, and a magall, so that's good for picking up things that you can't see. Now the second one is just a single camera. Then we have a light attachment that actually contains a aim node or aim microcontroller, so all of these are aimed in different directions, so it actually illuminates the biggest area. That's kind of the intention of that one. Over here we just have a single magall, and here we have kind of the quick release. So it just has an electric connector, good for attaching and quick releasing. And like I said, all of these are labeled. It also tells you what the input is. So when you do go ahead and plug it into your cranes, it will get you whatever is the input is what's going to be activated when you activate that input. Now, speaking of cranes, that is something that I've been working on heavily here, starting with the RSV Aloha. Some of you may have noticed the Aloha had this little crane up in the front, and while this is a very, very simple crane, it kind of fueled the fire for me to start developing a series of cranes, as I mentioned, and with that brought a bunch of different stuff. So I kind of went nuts on the cranes. As you could see, I've developed a bunch of different series of them, and actually I was kind of inspired by the old Olsen arm, if you know those ones, but those were kind of before a lot of these pivots and things, and I kind of wanted to do my own system of cranes using the Rat name. So here we have the Rat Crane 5, probably the smallest one I'm going to build. It literally is just a simple arm that has a winch up and down. Now this is actually found on the Regal built Starry, which contains or holds the crab boxes or crab cage. Very simple microcontroller, very simple crane. Honestly, nothing to it, just good for lifting things. A simple jib. Over here we kind of get complex, and you could see all of them now have monitors and cameras and things, and best of all, they feature 2 control stations. Now I don't necessarily like remote control cranes for the reason there's a bit of delay, and actually some of my Discord server moderators pointed out that it is possible to make them not be delayed, but my personal preference is either a seat or a controller on the thing. But you can see here it tells you RAD equipment, and then it has a flashing light, and you can move it around that pivot point. You can slide it up and down the track, and you can move it up and down with that suspension or piston piece. So this is a nice simple crane. It doesn't have extended reach, like it doesn't have a slider up there on the jib, but it does allow full rotation and decently heavy loads. Now what I mentioned is here you have a display, but also here you turn it on and have a display. Now you may be wondering what this gray dot is, and if I press space it turns green. Well, that is the input. So you can actually toggle the input on and off, and that input function will be whatever is attached to that winch. Moving on to the next one, so this is the Rat Crane 10. The Rat Crane 15 is the same thing, except this time it actually also features an extendable boom. So in this case you actually have an extra little bit of reach, which is very nice. Now this crane kind of is the strongest I'm willing to make on a single sliding track, and that's why over here when we get to the Rat Crane 20, it's an entirely different system using the large track. It is more stable. This is better for large things, and same idea here. You have the both sets of keys can turn the thing on, both sets of seats can operate it, and both sets of seats can activate or deactivate the attachment. Now this one similar, 25, and this one only has an extra pivot piece which allows kind of a fun set of motion up there. And the last two here, this one you may recognize actually from the back of my buckle trucks. It has a similar system, except now I've updated it to include this display and this input. You can still hold the elevation, we have spotlight control, and this thing is much stronger and more robust, as well as having a much longer reach due to multiple tracks inside the crane arm. And last but not least, we got this one, the Rat Crane 80. This is based on what you find in my vessel, the Alta boxcar or box ship, and this is actually co-developed with Zenoa, who is a moderator on my Discord server. So this is a great, robust crane, very powerful and strong. The one thing that I'm kind of stuck with now here is trying to make the microcontroller in this crane match the microcontrollers here, including the input function and whatnot. You don't see that here yet, but I will get there. It just has a different set of, pretty much the microprocessor that runs this crane is different than what runs the rest of these. But overall, I'm quite happy with this set of cranes, and starting from the smallest all the way to the largest, it's quite nice. And I will one day get us a bigger large crane. This is just what I have working for now. Obviously, I would like something that's double the length and quite robust for a bunch of different applications. But these are kind of truck slash ship based cranes that are more or less of good size for all those applications. And I just noticed a little glitch where if I got off the seat, it would turn off the input, which would be no good if you have lights or something. And in this case now I've attached a SR latch and I can control it from both. So a little update, a little fix, just that's why we do testing. The one problem with having kind of a universal microcontroller is that when you make changes that the other crane doesn't necessarily have, for in this case the flashing light got disconnected, the pivot here got disconnected, so we have to find ones in this microcontroller that are not being used, and then add in, for example here, the jib up down. And it seemed everything here was being actually used, so I had to extend the microcontroller to attach it to that node. And then of course in here I have to also double check that the unit is going in the right direction, meaning when I press up on my arrow keys, the actual jib boom pivot moves up. So right now I'm pressing down, it's going up, whereas this one down is down, up is up. So I actually have to go into it, change it. So little time consuming kind of bits, but not overall a big deal, just something you kind of have to get used to, right? And now up is up, down is down, and vice versa, or likewise on this one. So now it all seems to be working, including the track up, down. So I'd say this one is good to go. For the smaller guys on the smaller tracks, I know a lot of things are going to be not working and moved around just because of the position of how this is all kind of plugged in. So you can see the flashing light is actually on the crane in. And yes, I could just have a big microcontroller, but I am trying to be optimizing things. So for example, if I don't have large tracks, I drag that out and I could put the track in and out. This one doesn't have a jib up down, so it doesn't really matter. And then this can go to the tracks. So this should now work as it is, but little things of optimization do tend to matter when it comes to this, and they are kind of a bit of a pain when you inevitably change the microcontroller, but I'm hoping this is the final iteration and I don't have to touch it anymore, and then in that case it won't really matter, the different microcontroller sizes. So those are all the cranes. That was, even this took about 10 minutes, so you can imagine I got to 1.7. Every time I made a change, I had to implement it on all of them. So it gets a little repetitive, but now I'm left with a good working product that is stable and useful. So that's sort of what I wanted to get to, and then hopefully never touch them again. You will find I've updated a ton of stuff. You could see it's currently the 28th or 29th of December. In the last little while, I've updated, if we go from here, roughly probably 1/6 of my creations. So that's a lot of creations that received updates in the last little bit. The main thing was the semi-trucks. So you will now notice, if you go to spawn any of my trucks, that I've actually renamed the trucks if they have the new microcontroller style that is compatible with SIBTAT. You'll see them here. So previously, these were trailers that were purely HGS, which is my own system, and now you'll find that they actually do work with the SIBTAT system and the SIBTAT trucks. Now, currently we're in a bit of a weird spot where some of the trucks are not compatible. So actually, I have HGS systems not compatible with HGS systems. Only the semi-trucks are fully up to date, and the semi-truck trailers. And speaking of semi-truck trailers, I added something fun for everyone. If you take a look at my container trailer, not this one, this is the old version, but rather this one, I've actually placed the universal connector on this. So now we have the now we have the ISO containers in blue, we have the H4 in orange, and the R10 in red. So this is updated on both my regular and double trailer for the containers. So now they're more like a flatbed rather than being purely for the containers, which should open up a lot of doors for transportation of all kinds of different stuff. So in addition to all the all the trailers that I've made, I've updated some of the R10 trailers. So these are actually not semi-truck trailers, but they've been updated likewise. And you'll find that on my Rodeo, Bullride, and the unreleased GTC G1, they actually now feature the connectors on the bottom right here and here for the R10 system. So the same system as the ribs are now featured on only 2 trucks currently, and you can disable it, or first of all find out if it's compatible by clicking on the trailer hitch. You could see here release trailer hitch plus R10 bottom connectors. So both in the regular Rodeo and in the Bullride pickup trucks, you have these connectors and you have this release on the trailer hitch. So that now should make these vehicles a lot more easy to attach to boats, to ships, to all kinds of things. Now this one is something that I've been working on for some time now. Ever since I started updating all my helicopters, I also updated my VTOL. And in addition to having the H4 connectors here, the interface and the usability of this thing has increased tenfold. So we can, not tenfold, but you'll see. So first of all, it has nice systems here, Ray Industries, and we can now switch between info, AP, CCTV here. It has controls, and the best part is this info setup now has all of the information we need. So if we throttle up, It gains lift, of course, just like previously. Now it is a bit finicky and kind of quick response. You could see here when I put 5 in, it does list a little or lean, but then it kind of straightens out. But this information display includes our GPS and includes everything we need. This is something I'm very proud of that I've been working on. And all of these systems, so the altitude hold, the position hold, have kind of remained. I just did some optimization in all of these controls and stability of this plane. So the one thing I can't seem to figure out is when I hold this, it does tilt a little bit until the helicopter kind of system picks up, or the helicopter gyro picks up, and then it kind of leans back. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. Maybe someone can fill me in. This is the VTOL setup has been kind of driving me a bit crazy, to be honest, but I am happy with how this thing works overall now, and the systems in it are excellent. Like all this stuff, the CCTV, how we can flip between the cameras. If we jump to the CCTV, you can do switch, it'll show you the bottom. We have night vision on both. Actually, not on the top, this one, we only have night vision here, but on all of them you can rotate the camera, which is nice. The front one actually has zoom, the bottom one does not, but it does give us a nice sort of way of controlling what we see here. So the Martel has been updated, and I do want to make other VTOLs and heavy lift helicopters. I didn't realize that I was using the old display style, so now we actually have Martel, which is the brand of the VTOL, and other than that, everything seems to work nicely. A fun little creation I made was inspired by this SEMA Land Cruiser that has this tent on the roof. As you could see, I took my Buckle Prairie, added some gas tanks of extra fuel on the side, which you actually could plug into your regular gas port, but we can't ignore what's on the roof here. Now, if we use these little ladders, open this up, you actually have a camper that you could enter, turn on a light, close the door, get nice and cozy, and when you're done, you just kind of walk right out. So up there is a tent sort of camper. Now, of course, it can't be closed. Those are physical bricks, so we can't fold it down, but nonetheless, it does look cool. And in addition to that, I've added the color scheme and some beefier tires. So you can see the tires are a little larger than normal, so it does work quite well for off-roading. This is currently out for my Discord boosters, and eventually it will come out for everybody, but just a fun little build for overlanding. While updating my rat cranes, I decided I was also going to add some new tech to my rat forklifts. And this pretty much includes a nice simple display here, nothing too crazy, just a battery. But what it does is includes the transmission, where if you press space, it puts it in drive. You press space again, you get reverse. So you get a really nice kind of flow coming from the transmission side of things. And what you can do then is hold it, and it puts it in park. So you just get a nice simple microcontroller, cleans up the whole interface. We do have a battery here, just redundant, but for other vehicles that may not be the case. Then I added rear connectors of this system and replicated it here on the larger version. Now the larger version is kind of it is better, you know, it has more weight in the back and whatnot, but it operates using the exact same system, the exact same principle, and obviously has more power and strength. But in addition to that, the previous systems were kept, and it just kind of works pretty nicely. And then here we have the rod version, which allows us to pick up rods for mining or drilling for oil. And here it tells us if it is active, if the rod is clamped, and it lets us move the rod up and down and whatnot. So just a very simple build using the exact same principle, and obviously usable, and that's kind of the intention, while being quite small. The two forklifts I just shown are out. I do have a diesel electric version, but I did not do the changes to it because I found that this motor is heavily outdated and it requires more work, which I didn't want to put into at this time. But I did put work into the RX 118. What I did is actually revamp the entire jet powered system. So what happens is it fires up way faster and it is more stable and wastes a lot less fuel. So previously this is one of those things where it would actually burn fuel like crazy, and that's because I had the throttles, or the RPMs were going to like 50, and the jet engine wouldn't explode with an RPM of 50 or RPS of 50, but it was pretty much burning, I think, 150 liters a minute, whereas this is 37. So this will give you a lot more flying time, and this is the same engine I'm going to utilize now on my other builds that are going to come for helicopters. Next, I revamped my ROV system just a little bit. I tweaked some of the issues that I was having, especially with the winch, and what happens now is the winch auto extends and auto retracts depending on the length, or the distance rather, of the ROVs. So that is good. I added this beautiful ROV and I made this tiny one, which you'll actually find on the Gander. I did a bunch of other stuff, but pretty much the last one I want to show is the GTCG1 with the connectors on the bottom, giving it R10 capabilities. Which pretty much brings us back to the RV Gander, and I'll finalize showing you the details of it, and we'll take it on a test spin. On the deck of the Gander, like I mentioned, we have the container, we have the H4, and we have the R10 systems. So those are the various systems we have. I did put all these attachments. That gives us the variety of different things. And we have diving gear with the ability to fill it up. We have, of course, it's OMA, it has to. We have a fire hose, you could plug in right there. Repair gear, including underwater repair gear. So that covers this portion. Now we do have the ramp, which you can control from this area, or you can control from the cabin. That gives us a nice reach to use this as a landing craft. We do have winches around the place, and we have this rat crane. Now you'll notice there is no control handle here. You operate it from inside there. And we have a little ROV here, the same one I just showed you, and a winch. Coming around this side here, I've revamped the entire system that you see on the dashboard. So we have OMA Research, that's not old, this is same thing, but you won't believe the time it took me to program in the radar and the L meaning the locator. So I could have put B for beacon or transponder, T, but L for locator, and you can see we got the circle around us there. Now the CCTV system, I used the same one I put in the helicopter previously, which gives us the controls so we can move this around. It has night vision and it can reset, so it just pretty much gives us the ability to put a container on the deck, and that camera can actually clear the container, so it'll give us a nice view of what's going on, as well as active stabilization heaters, the regular refinements that we have in our vessels. Like I said, we have the ramp controls here. You also have landing wheel brakes, which is nothing new. We have that in the other version. And trim, all that good stuff. Now, if we hop into the operations room, it's a nice small room with a little coffee machine and fridge. But over here, we have our jib crane controller. It fires up the rat, and you can see we can move this around. If we press space, that gets activated. So then you can plug in one of those attachments, and whether you want lights beneath or magulls or whatever, you could pick it up and place it on the deck. So that's quite useful to have. Just a simple little demonstration. If you use the light rig, which I am showing you here, and now we could winch down, kind of drop it into the water and press space, we get a lot of different lights. So if you have that kind of shining over a work site, it will provide additional pretty good illumination, and again, you can drop it down so it'll illuminate further than if it was just attached, or like if it was just a spotlight attached to the boat. And to return the thing, you kind of have to hover over its spot, but eventually it should click in. You could use the arrow keys, which is nice to kind of make it pair up. So you just kind of hover over it and it attaches back in. Now to use the ROV, this is the crane to use it. This is only for deploying the ROV using one of the other rope anchors, but here, when this is plugged in and it's plugged in to this, then if you make your way into the control center, the ROV station, you can see here you have your controls, and this is pretty much just like we have it in the other vessels, minus the thrusters and the up and down, which I have to revise here on this system because this one does not have those features. When I deploy the ROV, I plug in both the large winch and the rat crane, and then if you turn this system on, it'll start feeding cable, which you don't really need, it just gives you slack. But then this is how you can pick up the thing. Just make sure you have it disconnected. You'll have to go to the back of here, or you could use the key right here, and once it gets released, you can pick it up with the crane and pretty much hoist it over the side, at which point you can drop it and disconnect it or whatever, and then it'll be controllable from the station behind you here. Now keep in mind, because it is a very small ROV, it does not have the best controls. This is something that people are struggling with on my OMA diving academy. It does work, but because it's so small, it really does take some practice, and the fins don't respond automatically. They're too small, kind of thing. So you just have to roll with it. I recommend a very slow speed and slow controlled movements, but if you do that, you can get it down to a shipwreck. You can explore. Yes, it's not the easiest, but for the size, it is pretty good. Fixing some of the descriptions on the seat as well as the distance now, you see that it works properly. So there you have it. That's pretty much what I've been working on the last little while. It's tough to explain just because while it's nothing major, like it doesn't include a major vessel, it does include a lot of different things for a lot of future systems. So not everyone agrees, and not everyone kind of works on their previous creations. Some just prefer all the time new, but I do like to make the things that I was previously proud of work properly. It is important to me, and hopefully you guys enjoy it too. So thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Stay tuned for these creations to come out, and as always, happy Stormworksing. See you next time.